Hello and welcome to the St. Vincent College History Information Session. We are so glad that you could join us today, and we hope that this time together will give you greater insight into the wonderful opportunities available through our history department. My name's Christina Andre, and I'm one of the Associate Directors of Admission here at St. Vincent College. And joining me today are Dr. Tim Kelly, Professor of History and Chair of the Department, Father Brian Boozle, Assistant Professor of History, Ms. Lauren Chirilla, Faculty Member in History, also a graduate of the History program, and also an internship host for Public History. We also have Ms. Casey Bowser, who is an archivist for the Sisters of Charity. She's also a graduate of the History program, an adjunct faculty member, and an internship host. And finally, we have Joel Trenton, and he is a current student here in our History department. Our program will have two sessions. First, we'll have short presentations from Dr. Kelly, Father Brian, and Ms. Chirilla. And following that, we'll have a Q&A session. And we encourage you to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A button, which should be located at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on your device. We thank you again so much for joining us today. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kelly.
Well, welcome everybody to the, I want to introduce the history program and the faculty in it. And the first one I want to talk about is Professor Gil Bogner, who is our medievalist historian and professor of Western civilization. He is, as you can tell from the photo on the right, he's very interested in pop culture and the way that the medieval themes emerge in today's pop culture. He's a wonderfully engaging and fun-loving professor. I think you would like to have a class with him a lot. Next up is Father Brian Boozle, who you'll hear from in just a little bit. He is a graduate of St. Vincent College, and if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that's his graduation photo from when he was an undergraduate, who has gone on to do many other things and has finally come back to the history department to teach with us. Wonderfully popular, teaches European history and gender history and world history. You can see he's very interested in students and student life, and he took a group of students to Peru this past spring. You can see in the photo in the upper right where he is working with chefs in Peru to learn a new skill. Professor Tina Johnson is our China historian who spends a lot of time in China, and she's also very interested in history of health and medicine. Her classes are very popular, and she's brought this new dimension to the history program of doing this history of public health and history of health, and students are really, really warm to her. You can see in the picture on the right that she is actually in China with students from St. Vincent College, where she brought them on a trip to China herself. Next up is Professor Tim Kelly. That's me. I'm a US historian. I teach classes in environmental history and sports history, history of American culture and economics, history of religion, among other things. I've been here for about 25 years and have really, really enjoyed teaching with students at St. Vincent, and really the whole St. Vincent community has been wonderful for me. Professor Susan Summers was here just a little bit longer than me. She does European history, modern Europe, and fraternal society. She teaches British history and history of medicine and intellectual history. And she's pictured here at the right with just a few of the books that she's had a hand in authoring or editing in the last few years. She's a wonderfully engaging, dynamic professor that students really warm to quite a bit. Professor Karen Kehoe is the director of our public history program. We'll learn a little bit more about public history in a few seconds. She's from Wisconsin originally, but she's transplanted very well to Western Pennsylvania. She teaches US history, public history, American women's history, and also food history, which is a relatively new class for us here. You can see in the photo on the right that students in one of her classes are working on developing an exhibit for the public history class. Father Rene has been here the longest of all of the historians at St. Vincent College. I think he joined the St. Vincent community in the late 1960s or early 1970s. He's wonderfully dynamic. Students love his classes, and they love meeting him in the halls. He's ever present on the St. Vincent campus, and a fun-loving monk and priest and professor that I think that you'll like quite a bit. And you may, in fact, if you're watching this, you've probably already met him or heard from him. He's around quite a bit and very active with the admissions program. Ms. Lauren Trilla is the newest member of the history program. She was also a graduate of St. Vincent College, and then she's gone on to the Duquesne University and Carnegie Mellon for her graduate degrees. She's a public historian who's the director, or the curator of the Carl Coverlet Gallery here on campus. And she teaches public history and Pennsylvania history and women's history, and this wonderful new course called Mindfulness, which she teaches with a colleague in the communication department. You can see on the right, there are two students in the McCarl Coverlet Gallery exhibit. And the students who come to St. Vincent and major in history have a chance to work with Lauren in developing exhibits and assisting with exhibits. And so they get really wonderful hands-on museum experience and gallery experience here at St. Vincent College. What I want to do now is turn over this presentation to Father Brian Buzel, who's going to tell you about the program itself a little bit and the wonderful experiences that students have and the ways that we hopefully are able to prepare and successfully prepare students for life after St. Vincent College.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Kelly, and it's great to be here with everyone today. As an alumnus of St. Vincent and of the history department, I have a lot of good news to share with you today, that our alumni go on to do, as Dr. Kelly said, many great things. And to be involved in many sectors of our society. Sometimes people think of a history major as being a major that one studies and pursues in order to teach, and that's certainly an important part of what history majors do. But there's also a wide variety of other careers and occupations that history majors find themselves working in and being extremely successful in, and not only at the level of teaching, but also in government and in civics. If you take a moment to look at this pie chart with me of what our majors go on to do after graduation, you see that graduate school is an important part of how we form our history majors to go on and pursue higher education and more concretely engage in teaching and in scholarly research. So that's 26% on this pie chart. Law school is also a popular path for our alumni. We just had 2 of our current seniors express that they have been accepted into nationally ranked law programs, and so that's very exciting for us. Teaching, which I said is really the bedrock, the foundation of what we do here at St. Vincent in our department. We're a teaching department who also does scholarship, but we really try to form our students to be good future teachers. And we have a wonderful opportunity to work closely with the education department at St. Vincent to produce some very fine elementary and secondary education majors who have focused on history. And as you see, there's some other areas which people go into. The United States government is always looking for history majors. Having done my graduate work in Washington, D.C., there wasn't a week or two that went by that I did not get an email from one of the federal offices or departments asking if I was interested in applying for thus and such job. Anything from doing archival work to statistical work. They're looking for people who can write, and that's what historians can do. Museums also, which will help us step into public history in a moment, is something that is a perfect way for you to prepare yourself to work in public history, would be in a museum or an archive. So currently, there are 2 majors within the history major. There's the major in history, in which individuals study a variety of different types of history, which specializes particularly in American, European, and Asian. And then those also subdivide into categories such as medieval Europe or modern Asia, or gender history or women's history. These individuals taking a history major might also choose to minor in education or minor in public history while retaining the history major. The BA in public history is our new exciting um, uh, part of the history program that we've introduced just this year. Public history, if you will, is, we think immediately museums and archives, but it goes beyond that. History centers and other places that teach the general public about history outside the formal classroom. Public history is a major that kind of keeps the public and keeps the craft of history in tandem with one another. If we have good public history, then we have well-educated citizens, who have opportunities to advance their own beliefs and understandings of history. And what people ask all the time, what can I do with a major in public history? Work in places like the Smithsonian, for instance. Think high, think broadly. The Heinz History Center in Pittsburgh, Fort McHenry National Monument. Work in local, state, and federal government offices. The CIA is looking for public historians, the FBI, the Social Security Administration. Or go to graduate school in such places as George Washington University or Johns Hopkins, the University of Washington, Carnegie Mellon, North Carolina State, and West Virginia University. We have individuals who have graduated from our program who are currently pursuing degrees there. So as I mentioned, public history is, for us, our newest major, and I really think that it's going to be something that a lot of individuals will find interest in. If they choose to major in public history or minor in it, this will provide them a wealth of opportunity to practice hands-on history with the general public. But I also want to make sure that we don't forget about the regular history major, which does build a foundation for the individual to teach, to become a good writer, a solid researcher, and prepare one for graduate school, for law school, for teaching, and for government work, and many other opportunities. So history also means that we like to experience things, that we like to go beyond the classroom. And that's important in the modern study of history. Book reading is very important. Writing essays and papers and précis are very important. But it's also important to learn parts of the craft of history that will assist us in our future, such as grant writing, such as study abroad and travel. I took a group of students to Peru this summer, or pardon me, this past spring break, and we've been studying the history and culture of the Inca, and it was amazing after all the study how much more we learned by being on site. It was amazing. History majors also get to participate in extracurricular activities that are history oriented, such as the History Club, Phi Alpha Theta, which is the International History Honor Society, our very popular history faculty and history student socials, which are held at the homes of faculty members, as well as internships with many local historical societies and historical places in which our students find enrichment in their education. And now I'd like to introduce Ms. Lauren Chirilla, who is going to talk about our graduates.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of our really amazing graduates we have of our History and Public History program. The first two that we'll talk about today work in the field of public history. So we have Pam Curtin. Pam currently works as the education coordinator for the Westmoreland County Historical Society. She's done work in environmental history, digital history, and public history. She was an intern here at St. Vincent, and she had a lot of really excellent opportunities and did really amazing work. She teaches now in our history department, and she's a really fantastic alumni. We also have Casey Bowser. Casey is actually on this call today, so she'll be available to answer questions later. Casey was also one of our history and public history students. She works currently as the archivist for the Sisters of Charity at Seton Hill. She had worked previously at the Westmoreland Museum of American Art, and during her time here, she had a really amazing opportunity. She got a really prestigious internship at Historic Deerfield Summer Fellowship Program. They only accept a really small number of people nationwide. So we've had public history students come in and really have some really wonderful opportunities and go out and work really amazing places too. So we're very proud of them. Our history program is also a great stepping stone for people who are interested in teaching in academia. We have students who would have gone on to grad school and gotten degrees in history all over the United States. So we have two alumni here that we'd really like to spotlight. So we have Professor Jill Kelly. She works and teaches at Southern Methodist University. She teaches and studies African and South African history. And then we have Professor Josh Catalano, who's at Clemson University. Josh teaches early American, Native American, digital history, and public history. So the academic route is always something that's available and something that a lot of our students are interested in. And we have really great success in prepping our students to go on to really successful careers in academia. We also have a really great program if you're interested in going on to law school. So a lot of people come out of history programs and have great success in legal endeavors. So we have two of our really fantastic alumni here. Zara Wallace is a really recent grad. He went to Washington and Lee Law School, and he currently works as a real estate lawyer. And then we have Brad Korinsky, who graduated first in his class at Duquesne University School of Law. Brad works in civil, commercial, employment, and family law. And of course, Father Brian mentioned that we have a really wonderful relationship with our education department, and we have a lot of our students who choose to go on and major both in history and then get their education certification and teach in a elementary and secondary capacity. So we have here Mike Medved. Mike actually is the same class year as me. He's a wonderful, wonderful social studies teacher. And on the side, well, I shouldn't say just on the side, he plays a lot at a lot of local wineries, bars, things like that. He's a singer and songwriter. He is working on recording an album in Nashville, and he was just actually very recently featured on our local radio station. So we're very proud of him too for his work. We have other alumni who have gone into nonprofits, government work, politics, all across the board. And one thing our alumni are great at doing is they're a great network for each other. So there are many people across different years who all stayed in touch with each other and are a great network for jobs, for internships, which is very nice for us. Anyway, thank you and welcome to St. Vincent. We hope to see your smiling faces soon. And with that, I will send you back to Christina.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly and Father Brian and Ms. Chirilla for that great overview of the history department. And at this time, we're going to do our question and answer session. So students, this is your chance to submit your questions. And again, there should be a Q&A button at the top or bottom of your screen. And I see we have some questions coming in here already. And our first question is coming in from Frank. And Frank says, I am curious what the history program is like from the student's perspective. Can you tell me how the students and faculty interact? And we're going to put that question over to Joel.
Well, hi, Frank. Thank you for your question. I would say that we interact very well. I mean, I felt from the moment I walked on to campus, I felt welcomed. They're very warm faculty. And you will find that in our department, we're all very close. I mean, these socials and these events and these things like that, these luncheons and dinners, they do strengthen your professional relationship and your personal relationship with many of these faculty members. You know, at St. Vincent, you're not a number. I mean, you are a person and people care about you. And that goes both ways. And so I've been very grateful to have been involved in that opportunity. So I hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you so much. And we have another question coming in now, and this is from Robert. And Robert says, I was considering double majoring in education and history and was wondering if there's anything you can tell me about that. And I know we touched on that a little bit, but maybe one of our professors, Dr. Kelly, could you elaborate on that question a little bit?
Sure, you'd be happy to talk about that. You can certainly double major. Would be an easy thing to do, and a lot of our students do that with affiliated or closely related majors like political science or with English. That's really common. We also have people who do double majors. We had somebody who not too long ago went off to medical school and was a biology double major with history. And we've had people who have done elementary education with history. So instead of being secondary certification, they're elementary certification. So we're really flexible and we encourage students to do that because it really, for us, it makes us think this is a student who wants to stretch herself or himself really broadly, and that's something that we really encourage and that we love to see. And so yeah, we double major is something we encourage. We work with students to make sure that works well, and I think it's relatively easy to do here at St. Vincent.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. And the next question is coming in from Pamela. And Pamela says, how well does the history program prepare its graduates to go on to study at graduate school or law school? And Ms. Bowser, if we could throw that one over to you.
Sure. So I'm a 2012 graduate of SVC, and I pursued a master's degree in museum studies from Johns Hopkins University after graduation. I really think that students will find that the liberal arts education offered at St. Vincent perfectly aligns with the rigor and expectation of even the most high quality graduate programs. The history courses emphasize research, reading, and writing, which are three vital components of really any graduate program in this field. The coursework, in addition, reinforces critical thinking and analysis, professional writing skills, and a real comprehensive academic understanding of history. And as Father Brian mentioned, special programs like internships, the study abroad programs, academic research conference, and grants encourage students to engage in opportunities like publishing research, curating exhibits, and participating in professional history organizations. So I think that this holistic approach well prepares students for graduate study.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's very valuable information. Wonderful. And then Zachary has a question coming in. And Zachary says, I saw the pie chart about what history majors do after graduation, but I would like more detail or some examples. Have any history graduates been able to find teaching jobs in Western Pennsylvania? And Dr. Kelly, we're going to throw that one over to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a good question, actually, because we have students who come from all over the country to come to St. Vincent, but we also have a lot of students from Western Pennsylvania. And very often they want to stay in the area and teach. And to tell you the truth, I've been surprised at how successful we are, if only because the competition is so stiff in Western Pennsylvania. But we've had students who have stayed very, very local in Latrobe, for example, Latrobe School District, where we are, but also Seneca Valley, Peters Township, Greensburg Central Catholic, and also Central Catholic in Pittsburgh. So people who want to stay in the area have been able to do that to a surprisingly high degree. And perhaps because our reputation is pretty good, the local schools are very receptive to students who want to come here.
Perfect, wonderful. I think that'll answer Zachary's question. Now we have a student, Autumn, and she sent in a question, and Autumn says, what if I don't want to teach? Can I still get a job with my history degree? And Ms. Bowser, I think we'll go back to you for that one.
Sure. So the answer is a resounding yes. Yes. A history degree can lead to careers in law, local, federal, state government, nonprofits, military and law enforcement, museums and archives, journalism, research, and even politics. There's so many options. And I think SVC history majors really emerge as well-rounded young professionals, either ready to enter the workforce or pursue further study. And I do have to say, I'm so jealous that the incoming students now have the opportunity to major in public history. I currently work as an archivist and museum professional, and at the time, public history was only offered as a minor. And I really think a BA in public history will give a lot of students a leg up on a very competitive field. And so I'm so jealous that they have that opportunity.
Thank you so much. It sounds like the history major is certainly very flexible and really can open a lot of doors. So thank you for that. Now we have a student, Troy, and he sent in a question. And Troy says, I noticed that 2 members of the history faculty are monks. I've never even met a monk before. How does having a monk for a professor, what does that mean for students in the class? And would that be different from other classes? So Father Brian, we'll throw that question over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Troy, and thank you, Christina. So as a student here myself, a couple years ago, I had monks as professors, and I would say that the difference between having a monk as a professor is just that you have a different kind of experience with someone who is connected to St. Vincent in multiple ways. So they work here, but they also live here. And they provide maybe a different perspective in things. So a lay faculty member might provide, a perspective of what it's like to be a parent and what it's like to be a married person or a single person or be raising children or living outside in the world. And a monk can provide you with a perspective of somebody who is single, lives in a community at St. Vincent. We're the largest monastery, Christian monastery on earth, as far as population, and help you to teach you things that are general spiritual principles, such as being grounded in what we do and acting in love. But maybe you want to ask one of the students here today what they might think.
Sure. Joel, do you have anything you want to add to that as far as your experience in the classroom?
Yeah, sure. I love the fact that you are able to have teachers that are monks. I think that, like Father Brian alluded to, it does provide another part of the educational experience that helps you achieve the goal of becoming a whole person. The whole point of liberal arts is to become the whole person and become as wise and as knowing as possible. And I think that the monastic community helps with that. And Father Brian did say a very important thing at the end, that they do work in love. They're very caring and loving people, and they'll help you in any way that they can. And so that is another thing. They're devoted to a life of service and a life of caring for the poor and caring for the needy. And so I think that that is an important part of the educational experience for me personally.
Wonderful. That's very good information, Father Brian and Joel. It sounds like it's a very enriching interaction there for all of our students. Now we have Suzanne, who sent in a question, and Suzanne would like to know, what is a history internship and why would I do one? And Ms. Chirilla, we'll have you answer that one, please.
All right, thank you for your question. So a history internship, what it will do is give you hands-on experience in some kind of field of history, depending on what your interests are. So we have a lot of our students, whether they be history majors or public history majors, who do internships with local nonprofits or museums off campus, but we also have a lot of places on campus. So I run a gallery We interpret 19th century textiles. We also have an art museum and the Fred Rogers Archive on campus, all of whom take interns and work study students. And what we like to do is use our spaces as a learning laboratory. So if you go into one of these internships, you might be able to go and develop some kind of museum education program that appeals to our education majors. Maybe you're interested in collections care and exhibit design, and we have had students, Casey is one of them, who have done exhibits in our gallery spaces. We have other students who maybe want to work behind the scenes and do archives. They've been able to do that as well. We have other students who have interned with local judges and politicians if you're looking for a more legal or political route. But what it really does is give you experience when you go out from St. Vincent, especially going on to a job market. It's really valuable because you're not just coming out green, you're coming out with actual like real life understandings of what happens in these places. And also, and I can tell you this, so many of our interns, their first job that they've gotten, they got because they did a really excellent job during their internship. So it's really important to make connections with people in the field that you want to get into, because people are going to hire somebody that they know and know that works really well, rather than somebody that they just find off of a resume. So that's good too.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Chirilla. And now we have Holly sending in a question. And Holly would like to know, will I be able to study abroad with a history major? Would that work? And Dr. Kelly, we'll send that over to you.
Sure, Holly. So you can study abroad with a history major. In fact, I don't want to say most, but I would say about 20% of our majors do study abroad, typically in the junior year, or they do, so they might be gone for a whole semester or maybe over the summer. And the program is really, really amenable to that. And in fact, we are thrilled when people say they want to do that. But the other thing we do, which is pretty unusual, not a little unusual, is that over the spring break and then sometimes over summer, a class will go over to Dublin or go over to Peru or go to Guatemala or somewhere and sort of set up the class during the semester and then go for a week or 10 days over the break and have an experience there and then come back. So we have both the short, intense experiences and the long, semester-long, or even in some cases, year-long study abroad. So yeah, we strongly encourage people to study abroad. We think that's a wonderful thing. And that has led, in many cases, to students getting jobs overseas as well, in Japan or China. We've had graduates who have then started careers over there. So it's a terrific opportunity for people to do that. And finally, we do have research grants that are available to typically students between the junior and senior year, where they do research for their thesis. And we highlighted Jill Kelly, for example, earlier, who now teaches at SMU. She went on a research grant from St. Vincent to do her research in South Africa and later became a historian of South Africa. After getting her PhD, she now teaches professionally as well. So yeah, the study abroad is something we really encourage, and students are really, really good at it here. So we make it very possible for students to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That sounds like an exciting opportunity. Robert did send in another question here. He had asked the previous one, and Robert now says, could you elaborate on what the benefits are when double majoring in education rather than having it as your minor for someone pursuing a career in teaching? And Dr. Kelly, I think that would still be for you if you want to just explain that a little bit more.
Okay, sure. So Robert, the state of Pennsylvania requires for secondary teaching in high school, that you major in this subject area like history or English or physics or something like that, and then you get your teacher certification on top of that. So people who want to teach in high schools or even in upper middle schools, they minor in education because that's what the state dictates, and we think that's really good, in fact, to have that major in history and then to minor in the other field. If you're going to double major in education, like history major education, maybe education for elementary school, that's an unusual path to follow, but students have done that in the past. I don't know that there's a great advantage unless you really love history and you really love teaching elementary school students. Then it would be a really good thing to do. But otherwise, I think the minor in education is fairly standard across the state of Pennsylvania. It's dictated by the Department of Education. But we like it because we think majoring in history is a really terrific thing to do, and we want you to have that knowledge base going into the classroom. So we think it's a wonderful opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. And that's all the questions that we had coming in right now. So we want to thank everyone so very much for joining us today, all of our attendees. We want to thank our panelists so much for the great information and insight that they shared with all of us. And for the attendees, this was not your only chance to ask questions. So if you think of additional questions later, please feel free to get in touch with us. You can contact us in the admission office, and then we can always put you in touch with our history faculty and other history representatives if you have questions about that. And for the high school seniors who have been accepted, who have not yet made their decision, we hope that you will decide to join our St. Vincent Bearcat family. We'd love to have you. And to do that, you would need to submit your deposit. You can do that online at www.stvincent.edu/deposit. And we thank you again so very much for joining us today, and we hope you have a great day.